Is death just an end, or is it the door to a brand new beginning for consciousness? Does everything we experience, every emotion we feel, disappear in an instant? Or is this world just a part of a larger reality? For those who wonder what happens after death, a guide thousands of years old answers this question, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Thodol in the original. This ancient text explains not only what lies beyond death, but also the deeper meaning of life. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes three main stages through which the soul passes after leaving the physical body. These stages are called bardos. The first bardo is the moment when the soul leaves the physical body. This moment is an opportunity for the soul to realize its true nature. The second bardo is the process in which the soul confronts the illusions created by its own mind. Here, fears, desires and every emotion accumulated throughout life appear as a reality. The final bardo is the threshold of rebirth. The soul is either liberated or begins a new life. This ancient text is not only a spiritual guide, but also a profound philosophical tool for understanding one's existence. Buddhist teachings say that an individual who develops mindfulness during life can remain conscious in the bardo after death. But this knowledge is not limited to death. The book also offers a guide to living life more consciously. Modern science is beginning to get closer to the truths pointed out by the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Studies showing a sudden burst of consciousness in the brain at the moment of death provide strong clues that the soul can remain conscious even after leaving the physical body. Experiences described by people who have returned from the dead and regression therapies bear striking similarities to the processes that the book pointed out thousands of years ago. This ancient wisdom tells us that death is not an unknown fear, but a transition waiting to be explored. Understanding what happens after death requires not only an end, but also the courage to discover the true meaning of life. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a unique text that provides a definitive guide to the journey of the human soul after death. This text is not just about understanding the unknown beyond death. It also provides wisdom that enables us to understand the essence of life. These teachings assert that death is not an end, but a gateway through which consciousness passes into higher realities. This transition is directly linked to the awareness and spiritual preparation one has developed throughout life. The Tibetan Book of the Dead deals with the process of death in three main stages. These are called bardos. The first bardo, Chikai Bardo, is the moment when the soul leaves the confines of the physical body. This moment is a critical transition. It is here that the soul encounters a pure light and has the opportunity to recognize itself in this light. The book definitively describes this light as the essential nature of the soul, that is, its pure consciousness. This process is an opportunity for souls in search of enlightenment only. If the soul fails to recognize this light as its own nature, it will inevitably drift into a chaos of fear and illusions. The second bardo, Konyat Bardo, is a stage in which the soul directly confronts its own mental projections. This is the stage where the fears, desires and thought patterns that the individual has accumulated throughout life become a concrete reality. The soul sees a mirror of its mind, and this mirror is not only a reflection but also a test. The Tibetan Book of the Dead states that this stage is the most challenging and, at the same time, the most transformative experience for the soul. The soul can reach a higher level of consciousness if it realizes that these illusions are only illusions created by its own mind. If the soul fails to develop this realization, it becomes trapped in these illusions and passes on to the next stage unconsciously. The last bardo is the preparatory stage of rebirth. In this stage, the soul must make choices and face the consequences of its actions in this life. If the soul has acted consciously in the previous bardo, it will have the freedom to choose its own destiny at this stage. In most cases, the soul is dragged unconsciously into its next life by the cycles of karma from past lives. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is clear: this stage is critical to spiritual evolution, and liberation and enlightenment are possible. These bardos are a guide after death and a profound teaching on how to live your life. Buddhist philosophy states that an individual who has developed mindfulness throughout life can maintain this mindfulness at the time of death and consciously manage the transition between the bardos. Meditation is the cornerstone of this journey of mindfulness. Calming the mind, controlling desires, and understanding our essential nature are the most important tools for guiding the soul's journey, both in life and after death. The ancient wisdom of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is supported by modern science. The research on energy bursts in the brain at the time of death and the continuity of consciousness provides irrefutable scientific evidence for the teachings of this text. The experiences of people who have returned from the dead are strikingly similar to the bardo described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. They consistently report seeing a bright light, reliving past lives, and experiencing either deep peace or fear. These accounts prove that the Tibetan Book of the Dead is not just a belief system, it describes a universal experience. Furthermore, modern techniques such as regression therapy irrefutably prove that the soul moves from one life to another. These therapies reveal that people have memories and traces of past lives, not just of their current life. This proves that, as the Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches, the soul moves in a cycle and can only break free of it through awareness and enlightenment. This wisdom carries a powerful message, not only about the afterlife but also about how to live your life. The key to a spiritual transformation is to realize that the boundary between life and death is blurred and that each moment is a bardo. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches that death is not something to be feared. It is an opportunity for the soul to transition into a greater reality. Live your life more consciously and deeply. This is the invitation. In conclusion, the ancient teachings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead not only shed light on the soul's journey after death, but also have the power to transform an individual's life. There is no reason to fear death. Instead, we must decipher its meaning and utilize this knowledge while living. This is the most important step towards freedom both in this world and beyond. This text is not only a legacy of the past, it is a guide in the chaos of the modern world. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is not only a guide explaining what happens after death, it is also a manifesto of transformation that helps us grasp life with a deeper understanding. Death, according to this text, is neither an end nor an unknown, rather, it is an opportunity for the soul to understand itself and come closer to its essential nature. However, this opportunity can only be utilized with courage and awareness. This ancient text blurs the line between life and death. Is not every moment in life a bardo, an intermediate world? Isn't your present state a transition at the intersection of past and future? The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches that the way to understand the bardo after death is to live these moments consciously and aware throughout life. Death is not merely a physical process, it is a test for the soul to recognize its own inner light. This light, according to Tibetan wisdom, is the essential nature of the soul, pure, limitless, and universal. Modern science has begun to offer discoveries that parallel the realities described by the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Explosions of consciousness in the brain at the moment of death, experiences described by people who have returned from the dead, and findings about past life memories all support the accuracy of this ancient wisdom. However, the power of this text is not merely a mystical guide or a scientific hypothesis. Its true power lies in its ability to bridge the gap between life and death, helping us to make sense of both realities. As the Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches, living every moment of life with conscious awareness determines the direction of your journey after death. This awareness is not a skill developed during life, but a forgotten knowledge of the nature of the soul. If the soul remembers this knowledge at the time of death, it can freely pass through the bardo and reach a higher level of existence.